Particle zoo insanity, part 1. If you know anything about quantum physics especially, they love particles. There are many of them, and they find them all the time through this thing, a big scientific toy, the Hadron Accelerator thing. Anyway, one of the major problems here is a simple, rational one that I'd like you to have a think about. All complex systems are built on simple foundations. It is impossible, I believe, to build anything of complexity, major complexity especially, with an overwhelmingly complex set of building blocks. Why? Because we have never observed or produced such a thing outside mathematical equations. If you take a simple example, if you have 50 different kinds of bricks and you're trying to build a building, I think you would have a serious problem trying to get any building of complexity, especially if some of these bricks keep changing shapes and they're totally unpredictable in their behavior. They have magic and mystery around them instead of just a simple brick and a bit of mortar. Quantum madness. At the very simplistic stage, what quantum says, forgetting about the deeper, more advanced, genius area of quantum physics, you have this which all physicists would, I hope, agree with. What they say is the universe is a spider. It has 8 legs. There are 4 forces and there are 4 particles. And again, they say there are a lot more, but forget the particle zoo for now. At the visible stage of the universe, they say there are at least these 4 things. The forces are nuclear strong, nuclear weak, electromagnetism and gravity, and the particles are protons, electrons, neutrons and photons. No. If I said to you that no, just 2 things can explain everything better than the 8-legged spider, what would you say to me? Obviously, what I have to say should sound stupid, it should sound amputated, and it should be sad, like this poor little dog with just 2 legs. It should be totally ridiculous for me to be able to justify something that needs, as a minimum, 8 fundamental legs, without which it cannot survive. What I have to say should be almost biblical, Jonah and the whale stuff. It should make no sense to you. Occam's garbage bag. In science, most professional science, I believe, and I mean no disrespect, but we all have jobs and that's, it is what it is, but most professional scientists are like Hoover salesmen. They neither make the Hoovers or use them, they just sell them. That has been my experience throughout my academic life. They bleat on whenever you see them about rationality and Occam's razor, which means that the minimum rational explanation probably has got the greatest probability of being truth about a given problem or a given question. And yet they go out of their way, especially in quantum physics, to make things as complicated as possible, with paying almost no attention to reality or rationality in the street sense of the word, for a common man, the way we use common sense to survive every day. Prove it. Let's see. Quantum physics is a special place that only geniuses can walk in. It has become extremely territorial and very intimidating, and that is one of the reasons why almost no other science branch ever dares to question these people, because they hide behind some amazing mathematics that they have made to be very complicated. I can't comment on the mathematics of it, but obviously the results that they're churning out seem to be wrong. As I am going through these, you'll see more and more. But more importantly, no one gets a cookie for simple and obvious. You have to come up with something unbelievable, and it's not becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. You keep making things up and some other guy comes along and they have even the more incentive to find the ghost that you came up with, and both of you get a Nobel Prize. So the quantum side of things, as well as becoming very territorial and elitist, almost like a cult, is every time you open the bowl of quantum physics, a new particle pops up, and for that they throw at you Nobel Prizes like cookies in a candy store for kids. If you've been watching some of the videos that are, I've numbered them specifically for that reason, to hopefully make them slightly more rational, so you can see as we build the image of what I'm trying to say. By now you should be seeing that the universe really is made up of just two entities, like this particular thing, a male and a female slot together, and then you keep adding the same principle of males and females to build a bigger and bigger and bigger picture and more complex systems out of this very simple thing. And I've said that that was an electron and a proton. We've been through gravity, we've been through charge theory and atoms. So essentially I shouldn't really have to go anymore. I should be able to leave it here, and you should be able to be comfortable with it. But I think maybe it deserves a bit more explanation. This is how we can reduce 8 into just 2 and make more rational sense. The sequence of primary reactions in the universe, if you remember, we've been through this before, is that the hydrogen atom becomes the hydrogen molecule, and the more hydrogen nebula, the gas that develops where they, lots of hydrogen atoms, it becomes the hydrogen moon, hydrogen star, where fusion occurs, and from fusion we manufacture photons and neutrons and also atomic speciation. Now it is obvious from this particular state that the photon must be something similar to the electron because it comes from it. So why you wouldn't think that it is an electron but slightly modified is beyond me, but it is, and you'll see later on more proof. And the neutron is definitely a proton that's been modified. In fact, in the nucleus, it is wrong to see one proton as a proton and the other one as a neutron, because they must be bonded covalently. There's no reason why one electron would prefer one proton to the other one, but when they're broken up, when the nuclei break up, if one of them comes out as a neutron and the other one's a proton, I can't make any comment on that. I have not done the experiment. So conclusion so far: photons and neutrons are not distinct particles. They are manufactured by gravitational congregation of protons and electrons. So now the spider has 6 legs. As you can see, that those two there's no reason to be putting those as fundamental particles. But that's not all. If you've been following the logic of this thing, you should already be seeing that it has a hell of a lot less legs, because if you do not have 2 patches like this pirate here, and you use your eyes instead of just using mathematical equations, the answer, I believe, is quite straightforward and simple. So look at what gravity has done. And remember, gravity is nothing more than the force of the proton that attracts, the hunger that the proton has for the electron, and the electron is not attracted to the proton, otherwise it wouldn't be in an orbit. Anyway, the squashing force of gravity has compressed protons and electrons and manufactured both electromagnetism, so there's a force that comes out, the nuclear strong and nuclear weak forces, because it has produced nuclei, and in there you have the covalent bonding and also the weak ones. And now the spider has only 3 legs. In reality, if you go back and look at them, we're just left with gravity, protons and electrons. The point I was making is that there seems to be pointless blind double counting. Nobody's paying attention to what the thing is, because if you keep using mathematical equations, you need these, I guess, to segregate things, to use the equations. But you're double counting the same thing. The man is the shadow is the man. The particle is the force is the particle, if you see what I mean. And many of these forces are in fact just as a result of interaction of the hunger that proton has for an electron, and there's no need to be double counting all of these things. It just makes things complicated when it doesn't have to be. So and gravity, of course, itself is the result of the proton's hunger for the electron, which we saw earlier on. So therefore, we really just have 2 things. You don't need anything else. Everything that the 8 things that the physicists accept, the 4 particles, fundamental particles, and the 4 fundamental forces, can be explained in just 2 terms: proton, electron. That is all you need, and you can explain all of the behavior that you see. So the force of gravity, just to conclude, is the balance between the force of protonic, because neutrons are modified protons, attraction to the electron, and the amount of electronic energy present in the congregation. It is the ratio of the 2. That is what mass is. So conclusion: electrons and photons are the same thing. There is a video later on that will hopefully try and explain this further, why it is and where this nonsense of electronic mass comes from, which is again a mathematical calculation that is totally wrong, because electrons don't have They cannot exist outside magnetic fields and outside other atoms and molecules where, of course, their bonds are electrons, and they induce a kind of a magnetic or electric field on the photon itself, and therefore it behaves in a certain way that looks as if it has mass, but it really doesn't. Electrons do not exist in vacuums, and there are many other instances where electrons cannot be anything other than photons, and we'll see that in another video. So what about the mass of the electron? Think of the electron as a trapped bird and the photon as it flies away when it is free, which is almost everywhere when we observe it. This is exactly what we see. As soon as the photon becomes free from protons, it behaves like a photon. Even in semiconductors and superconductors, this behavior changes when you heat it up and you provide for it more freedom. It behaves exactly like a photon, which is what it is. And mass is, the idea of mass is a mistake. It is an induced mass. Definitely there is something present, but the reason for it is not because electrons have mass, is because they're in magnetic field, and that is like you walking through treacle, because it affects you. And as I said, there's a video about why they are the same thing. So electrons and photons are the same thing. The electron is the captured photon, etc. The charge theory of physics we've seen before is complete nonsense, because our opposites do not attract and like charges do not repel. That would be crazy. Protons do not repel one another, or there would be no nuclei in the atom. They have no affinity, but they do need glue to stick them together. They're not necessarily attracted to one another, but when they are next to each other, their forces are additive, and that's why you get a bigger and bigger cluster, as we've seen. So protons bond in the nuclei just like atoms bond in orbits. The only way protons can bind together in nuclei is to use a portion of the electron in the orbit of the hydrogen atom and covalently bond. We're going through this again, but I think it's important to reiterate. Covalent bonding means the sharing of an electron, and in this particular case, in the nucleus, there is no reason to believe that the electron, the part of the electron that remains from two of these, if you think about it, to make a deuterium, that it would prefer one proton to the other. And how would that other one bond anyway? So you would need a covalent bonding in the nucleus. That would be the strong nuclear force. And the other electron, by the way, is here, and part of the one that's been used in the nucleus to bond these two protons together is radiated as radiation. So why do we need gravity if like charges do not repel and opposites attract? Because unfortunately that isn't the case. I've shown you before that the charge theory is completely wrong. It's a remnant of the 19th century electricity experiments and false assumptions. The equations that were used, that then other people that came on that studied physics borrowed these equations, and without questioning them, they have continued to use like muddy boots and are walking all over modern physics with the same muddy stuff that should have been cleared up as a housekeeping exercise a long time ago. So like charges are additive, like I said. Both electrons will add to one another. You'll see further examples of why they're additive, because they constructively bond, they increase in intensity, and so on and so forth. And also the protons, although have no affinity, they do support one another and grow in reach, if you like. This was just meant to be a short thing to just show you its essence, that you don't need 8. That a lot of double counting is going on here, and the two simple things make a hell of a lot more. If you do believe in Occam's razor, then hopefully that will show you that Occam's razor is better than Occam's garbage bag, and most of the other particles which do not exist, in my view, and I'll give you my reasons later for them, and you'll have to make up your own mind, are just made up because there is a great deal of pressure on physics to be almost cultist. You have to be complicated, and you have to find particles all the time, and they seem to be finding them like a self-fulfilling prophecy. This book, I think if you need a full explanation, systematic explanation, then it's a lot better to get this is free of charge. I don't really want anything from you, but these videos, I apologize, they're bits and pieces all over the place, and I don't know how else to make them. I'm hoping that as you watch them, cumulative perception will begin to kind of emerge, and you'll see better what I mean by all of the problems that we have in modern physics. Thanks.